Hey y'all, it's James with Crawlers and Customs, and today is the day that we finally take a look at the version 2 cab-over semis. Let's get into the office. All right, so here's the 110 scale Peterbilt cab-over, but you guys might be wondering why I built another one, because you may have seen this one before. This one was pretty good, but there were a lot of areas I wanted to improve, and I just decided to start fresh. So that's why we got this version 2 Peterbilt 362 inspired build, and we'll go over lots of the details in this video, and eventually we're going to include and update the description to include all the links for the files so you can build one yourself. All right guys, let's get into it. All right, so let's go over some of the parts that you're going to need to build this truck. For those with a keen eye, you'll recognize those are the Redcat 53 COE wheels and tires. I chose those over the Sen wheels and tires, even though I actually make these wheels, because the Sen tires is very plasticky and it has a very soft sidewall, so it's just not a great application for something that's going to be hauling. Where the Redcat hauler wheels and tires, those were designed from the beginning to be, they're more rubbery and they have a much stiffer sidewall, so it's better if you plan to put a lot of weight on this truck, which I do, and we'll get into that at the end of the video. So those are the Redcat wheels and tires. Talking about axles now, front end is entirely a 53 COE front end. So that's the 4-link, the axle, the C hubs, the shocks, etc. For those of you that want to get a head start, go ahead and order all that. The exhaust also is the Redcat 53 COE. And the rear axles are the old school generic SCX10 style rear axles. I chose those because they were horribly overscale back then for a 110 scale crawler, but they are perfect for a 110 scale semi because they're so big. They're also inexpensive, strong, lots of aftermarket available, and they're all aluminum. So this has an all aluminum drivetrain, telescoping drive shafts, and it uses the generic RC 4-wheel drive R3 transmission. So we'll show that a little bit later. But that means you get an all metal drive line for inexpensive with tons of aftermarket. And we'll also show why we chose that R3 transmission in a little bit. All right, let's talk about the printed parts. Big one, obviously, is this cab. Now this is a large print, and you will need a large printer if you plan to print it in one piece. You could of course use your slicer and cut this up and print it on smaller printers, but then you're going to be dealing with seams, and that's okay if you want to sand and glue. But for those of you that don't have a large printer, I will be offering this cab as something you can just buy and then build the rest of the truck yourself. It's a challenging print because there's some openings, but I really wanted to improve the scale aspect versus the sort of version 1 of this truck. So we've got opening doors, we've got curved Lexan glass, we've got mirrors, we've got full interior door panels, seats, floor mats, etc. We even got a headliner in this one. So just more scale, better fit, and things like the front bumper have integrated LEDs. We'll get into that a little bit later. But that's basically the outside of the truck. You'll also notice as we talk about it that there are no exposed M3 bolts. Even on 110 scale, they're pretty large. 114 scale semis use them, and it's pretty ridiculous. They're just way too big. So all of the hardware on this truck is generally M2.5 or M2 bolts, which are much more scale looking. You'll see I use scale sort of acorn style nuts and bolts on a lot of the truck. So there's no exposed body pins or anything like that. I really wanted to keep it clean. And same thing with the back bumper. Super clean, minimal hardware exposed. And you're also going to see that I hid the wiring a lot on this truck. All right, let's talk about the lighting now. So that's another area I really wanted to improve, not only just on my other vehicles, but specifically on this build. Is I took a lot of time to make the wiring simple, but also really scale and really functional. So let's get into some of that now. So you'll notice there are lots of holes here. I want to say that's around 30 or 40 LEDs, I forget. We've got the headlights, we've got the roof marker lights, we got the back of cab, and we have the back bumper lights. And the way I did it is these are all LED strips. They're ARGB, which means we can individually control all of these lights. That's far different than how most LED kits work in the RC world. And it's been specifically designed and coded for this truck. So all of this is running off an Arduino Nano. There are 5 basically output pins or channels, and those 5 correspond to the 5 groups of lights. So the front bumper is one group, headlights a group, cab top is a group, back of cab is a group, and taillights are a group. So with that being said, we're controlling them not just with the steering, but also with the throttle. And it took a lot of time to really make this unique and sort of better than what exists in the market. So it's also really inexpensive, and it requires a little bit of soldering, but not as much as you might think. So these are the type of LEDs that we're using. These are ARGB or addressable. And believe it or not, let's talk about the front bumper. It's lights that are similar to this, obviously different spacing, but there's only 3 solder joints for this front bumper, right? So it's a continuous strip of LEDs that have individual lenses, and they're fully controlled by the Arduino that's on board. So we're gonna come back now with the lights off and show you all that functionality. So here is the truck with the lighting on, and you'll notice this kind of looks like a continuous band because it's overexposed here on the iPhone. But you can see those are all individual LEDs. And just switch to our little Easter egg mode there. That's a Knight Rider theme. But we've got the headlights. The marker lights are a little dim. I'm going to turn those up in the code. They're at about half power, so we're going to bring those back up to match the front bumper. Out back, those might look orange, but those are red. Again, it's just the iPhone exposure here. And same thing with the tail lights. So you'll notice you don't see any signs of those LEDs. All the wiring is hidden in the chassis rail, so you don't see any wiring at all. And even at the back of this bumper, you don't see any LEDs there or wiring. It took a lot of time on that, so we'll get to that a little bit later. But that's the lighting setup on the truck, and let's show some of the functionality now. All right, so let's look some of the functionality. So this is taking the PWM signal from the receiver, it's processing it, and it's turning it into sequential turn signals front and rear. It's one of the things I'm most proud of. I took some time to really try and make this lighting sort of cooler and more scale and more functional than you find even in the huge like 1/14 scale semi-market. So steering will go sequential front and rear. Here's your front end. Let's go out back. So we're out back now. Again, it looks kind of orange in the videos, but it's red. And you can see the brightness not only changed there, but going to sequential for left and right turns. And then also, this is where the ARGB really kicks in. We go to the white reverse lights from red on the same LED. So we go to reverse now. Now we're in reverse gear. We're spinning those backwards. We've got bright, full brightness, reverse lights that actually lights up the area behind the truck. And then when we let off, back towards neutral, we're back to a tail light. Also what I did, which is quite different than everything else on the market, with the censored motors and sort of crawler drive lines that are pretty common in the scale world, you don't often use the brakes. So you don't get to see brake lights because there's just so much, I don't want to say drag, but sort of the systems are designed to automatically hold. So instead of hitting the brakes, what we actually do is we give it throttle. Let's see if I can show that. We're going to give it throttle. And the way I programmed it is it looks for a descending PWM signal. It means if we start to let off the throttle, we get brake lights, right? So you still get that kind of cool functionality, but without actually having to stab the brakes, which is just not going to really happen if you're driving at scale speeds with one of these out of Show and Shine or Cars and Coffee or something. So again, it's looking for a descending PWM signal. We give it throttle. If we start to let off, full throttle, start to let off, we get brake lights, right? So I think that actually functions more realistically than actually hitting the brakes. And then again, we'll just go into reverse to show those reverse lights. All right, so we've got the cab tilted forward. It's just hard to operate the hidden body mounts with one hand, but basically the way it works is there is this hidden sliding cross member that serves to hold the exhaust up, but also is the hidden body mount. So you reach under the truck, slide this back. It should be hard to show, but see those forks that come in? Those are captured and they grab these tapered pins. So you can actually lift this entire truck up by holding the cab if you wanted to. It just shows how strong it is, but it totally integrates and hides all of the body mounts. You'll also see that the cab keys into the steps, so that gives it support, helps locate it. There's also things like TPU mud flaps. And I'm going to apologize for this wiring mess. I haven't quite finished that area. I'm probably going to use magnetic connectors, so this is all hidden. But you'll see, besides this mess that I haven't finished, I just didn't want to delay this video anymore, all of the wiring is hidden on this truck. So we'll get into that now. So left side here, you can actually tuck this connector all the way down inside there. That is your 5,000 mAh battery pack with a magnetic cover. And on the right side, you'll see lots of wires going in. That is your lighting controller, the Arduino Nano, and your receiver. There's a sliding tray here as well, right? So you can access those wires. Again, mirrored on the other side as far as the covers go. These are stainless steel cable ties or wire ties, so it looks really scale, but you'll actually see that the weight is being borne by this large bracket. It's actually bolted to the truck as well. So this sort of all integrates into the strength of the truck. Again, you could pick up the whole truck by any of these pieces. Here's that R3 transmission we were talking about. So all metal, center drive line with a drop transmission, and that's kind of how a real truck would work. This is a scale motor. You could put any scale motor here that you want, sitting on top of a 2-in-1 ESC and motor, and then all metal drive line coming out back. So kind of show it from the side here. It looks really scale, looks nice and clean. So we've also got a scale radiator up front there, and we've even done an exhaust manifold to keep that area under the cab ready scale. I think that's also where the Tamiya style trucks are really lacking, is in the interior and under cab area. They just don't have the room for this kind of stuff. So these are easy to print, strong, and scale. You'll see the Red Cat shocks up there. These are, again, are a better solution than the Sen shocks like I did on the other truck, because these are much stiffer springs, much stiffer damping, and it works better for the semi loads. Let's look at the under cab a little bit. Again, I'm going to tidy all that wiring up. I just didn't want to delay this video any more than I have. All right, now we've got the cab closed again, and I wanted to show some of the other details. These are 1.5 millimeter piano wire that's bent. These holes that are in the cab, they're sort of dimples. So if you want to go this route, you can drill them out and locate these so you get good symmetry on the left and right. Same thing with the mirrors there. That is 1/8 polycarbonate mirror sheet that I cut to fit inside that printed housing. And these are bent stainless steel tabs, stainless steel hinges. That's my dog that actually passed last year, and that's John Wick in there. We'll flip the truck around so we can actually see the inside. Got your Peterbilt logo, some 1/10 scale wipers, scale grill, and a totally flat bumper again. Pretty proud of this clearance as well. So you can see how the cab hinge location allows it to kind of pivot down and back as it tilts forward. So we're showing the stance on this truck. That's something I take a lot of time on with a lot of my builds, just making sure that it kind of looks good. This is a little bit lower than maybe like a stock truck would be, but would still be usable in the real world. And you can see those clearances are nice and tight. And I'm really happy with how the truck sits. I just wanted to show the driver's side now. So you can see he's got switches and gauges. You guys can go crazy detailing that out. Interior door panel, with window switches. And this is actually also made for a small magnet to fit on there and in here. So that'll hold it closed. But the fit's pretty tight stock, so I actually haven't done that to my own truck. The steps snap in, so that way you can still drop the entire interior out if you needed to add more detail or work on it for whatever reason. Let's talk about the rear suspension a little bit before we get under the truck. So this is a trailing link design that I drew up along with a Panhard bar, and you'll see that on a lot of semis, along with a TPU pneumatic airbag. So we're going to try and see if I can show you this, but these are squishy. It's hard to see with my fat finger there, but these are squishy airbags. You can make them stiffer or softer, just changing the infill or wall count. I have mine set up pretty stiff because I plan to carry a lot of weight, maybe 7 or 8 cars on a car hauler. So that's the rear suspension. And we'll show you a couple options on the fenders that I've done. So I've been playing with rear fenders a lot. I just haven't found one that I'm super happy with, but there is that sort of half style fender that you may have seen on custom trucks. And I've got a full style fender. These mount to the trailing link mounts. That's why you see these bolts are a little long. So you actually mount it from this side. I'm not going to do that right now, but that's basically how those would sit out back. And this is all printed from PETG, so it's really durable. It's easy to sand. You can prime and paint it. The only thing I've done to this truck is I took an orbital sander to the top of the cab because I print this face down on the printer, and you'll get some layer lines here in this big radius. So I just sanded that down, but the rest is untouched. And I just want to show you guys just what a white cab with no paint on it looks like. So as part of the STLs, you'll get some drill jigs that allow you to make any length chassis that you want, but it locates all these holes and it actually clamps the chassis. So you get a fully mirrored pair of chassis rails. You'll see scale dampers here as well. I don't know if you can see that. They're in there, there are those little shocks. And you can see the trailing link design there. You also see we did scale axle and hub covers there. That's front and rear. And then some steps as well. See the scale rivets on the cab. And then maintaining that totally flat front end was one of my goals. You can see that's just a straight wall. All right, so we're under the truck now. Should talk about dimensions. 27.5 inches on this particular stretch. You can go longer, shorter. It's up to you. You're just going to order a different length, center drive shaft or intermediate drive shaft. And 260 millimeters wide. That's important. That's exactly 1/10 scale for what a semi should be. So I'm kind of a stickler for that. I don't like to mix scales, and it's exactly that width. So up front, again, this is one of those areas I'm pretty proud of. That is the back side of the bumper. You'll just see those 3 wires going in and they're soldered. The LED strip is wrapped around this bracket, which snaps and then bolts in place with that single bolt, but it keeps it super clean. There's your Red Cat 53 servo and axle front end, and you'll see the rest of the parts that we designed. So your tanks with some large brackets, the R3 transmission. I like it because it's a centered drive line. Again, with the telescoping shafts. And the chassis are 3/4 inch aluminum C-channel with the SCX large old school pumpkins here, which look really good on this semi. You'll see the trailing link there with the perches for the airbags. So I try to really focus on making this scale simple to print and simple to build. So there's not a whole lot of parts. There's kind of this center assembly. It all bolts together and then slides in the chassis and bolts on. But it's not that complex of a build. So hopefully I'll be shooting a video where we actually go into building one of these, and maybe I'll end up selling this truck to somebody who just wants something turnkey, and we'll build another for the video. As far as electronics, I would definitely recommend the 2-in-1 style motor, low kV like the 12 or 13 or 1100, because this has plenty of speed and you're not going to be driving at 20 miles an hour. You're going to be towing a trailer, so you want that torque. On the short list of things to add, this fifth wheel, I plan to add a micro servo that will control a rotating mechanism that will allow you to attach and detach the trailer remotely. As far as electronics beyond that, you can kind of pick what you want. I used that dual stick style transmitter because it's also what I use on the skid steers that I like to drive, and it's got plenty of channels. So the lighting is all plugged in via Y harness to the receiver. So really, as it sits, it only needs 2 channels, but like I said, we will be adding some remote functionality for the fifth wheel. It has a pin design now where you slide in a pin and it captures the M4 bolt kingpin, which is what I used on the trailer. And maybe some functionality later down the road. I've wanted to make the cab tilt remotely, but it seemed like overkill and added complexity and expense. Probably saw this in the background, but this is a work stand that helps you build the truck as you're putting things together. So those are in the files as well. If you made it to this part of the video, thanks for sticking around. That's my pegboard wall in my office. But I also wanted to show you kind of what's going to be going on the back of that truck. So this is going to be huge and expensive. I don't expect you guys to build this on your own. If you want one, we'll have to talk, on an individual basis. But this is all going to be laser cut, 1/8 aluminum rails. You can see I just have the design roughed out, but it's using 5 pairs of electric linear actuators, which give you control of those upper decks. Again, these are just placeholders. That's not what the upper deck will look like. But with that design, we should be able to hold quite a few cars as we stack them in sort of in a scale way. I plan to also do that same ARGB lighting for the sides of these rails. So we'll have amber lights in a continuous row, and then we'll mirror the back of the truck with a set of LEDs that run on the back edge of that bumper and do some telescoping style ramps. So that's gonna be a big project. It's gonna be expensive just in materials and controllers, but that's kind of where we're at there, and I hope to finish that here in 2026. All right, we made it to the end of the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Are you gonna build one? Do you think 110 scale semis are cool? Do you think they're dumb? Do you think 114 is the way to go? If you do, you're wrong. Just kidding, to each his own. But yeah, I built this because there's not a lot of options on the market. And when we've got that all aluminum car hauler trailer with all the actuators, I think this is gonna be pretty wild at lowrider shows, cars and coffee, show and shines, etc. I should mention this is not for off-road use. It has millimeters of travel, which is scale, versus, feet or inches, which you might find on crawlers and stuff. So those are rock crawlers. This is going to be for cruising sidewalks and parking lots, drift comps, etc. I plan to add to this video in the description the links to buy this. I just haven't set that up on my web store yet, but that'll be happening shortly, and I just wanted to shoot this video. I might end up selling this truck so we can build another one on video, but it's actually pretty simple, and I might just do some parts breakdown shots from Fusion so you guys can see how to put it together. You're gonna need M3, M2.5, and M2 hardware, but it's not that daunting of a build, besides the maybe printing of the cab. I do plan to also sell pre-drilled chassis rails for those that just don't want to mess with it. But I used a small drill press in my guides, which clamp everything together and let you get perfect holes. But there are a lot of holes. If you start to count them up between the front and back of the chassis, maybe it's 80 holes or something. I don't remember. All right, so that's the version 2 Peterbilt inspired COE.